The Torah reading for this morning, the second day of Rosh Hashanah, is found on page 103. Page 103 in our Masorim. When I was in high school, I was very advanced in my heresy. So I went to an Orthodox high school, and I imagine I'm one of the few high school students we called a heretic on a regular basis, but so be it. And one of the incidents that stands out is related to the Torah reading that we read this morning. So this morning we read the story of the binding of Isaac, and I was in my Chumash class, my Torah class, and the teacher was talking about the Torah portion that we're going to read this morning, and the idea that Abraham passes all 10 tests that God has for Abraham, and this is the 10th test that Abraham passes, demonstrating Abraham's commitment, Abraham's dedication, that Abraham is so committed to God and this enterprise that Abraham is even willing to sacrifice his own child. And so, and he said, and the proof for that is that Rashi, the famous medieval French scholar, says so. And I said, well, I disagree. So why do you disagree? So I disagree for a number of reasons. Number one is, it's hard for me to think that a God who asks someone to sacrifice their child really wants you to sacrifice your child. Like, the whole point is that we are being different than the people who lived around us. And in fact, Mount Moriah, for those of you who have been up on Mount Moriah, which is where the Temple Mount is located, there's a Gay Ben Hinnom which goes around the side, which is actually a famous site of where child sacrifice used to take place. And so, which is where the Hebrew word Gehenna comes from, is Gay Hinnom, from that place. That there's no more hellish place than that valley where child sacrifice used to take place. So God is telling Abraham to go to the place where the other people are doing things. That doesn't make a lot of sense. And he said, well, Rashi says that he passed all 10 tests. And I said, well, here's another thing. And it says that Abraham is so good at defending everybody else that when God says, I'm thinking about destroying Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham says, don't do it. You can't do that. What if there are 50 righteous people, 40, 30, 10 righteous people that are there? And he passes the test for standing up for Sodom and Gomorrah. And then God says, go kill your son. And he's not expected to do the exact same thing. That Abraham was great for everybody else, but he's not so good with his family, if you pay very careful attention to what's going on, which is not an uncommon thing among our political leaders, that they are very good at being politicians, but not very good at being parts of their family in terms of those particular pieces. And he said, but Rashi said that he passed all 10 tests. And I said, well, here's another thing, which is you'll notice that from the moment that Abraham gets on top of that mountain, neither God nor Isaac nor Sarah ever speak to Abraham ever again. Okay, so if you pay attention, it's an angel, a voice coming from heaven, not God talking in that moment saying, please don't do this. And that there are commentaries that talk about the idea of God kind of being like, if Abraham really thinks this is what I want to do, let him do it. And an angel speaks out and says, no, we can't let Abraham do this, and speaks out in that particular moment. And you'll even notice at the end of the story, Abraham and Isaac, the whole way up the mountain, are doing everything together. But when they come down the mountain, Abraham comes back by himself. So Isaac, assuming Isaac was spared, and for another time we can talk about some traditions around Isaac actually dying and being resurrected, but let's say Isaac survived. Why is Abraham walking down by himself? They did the whole journey together, and they can't do this part by themselves. And in fact, the next time we encounter Isaac is in a famous location where Ishmael hangs out, where they're probably both talking about their daddy issues. Right? Ishmael and Isaac kind of saying, Ishmael's like, Dad kicked me out. I was like, just wait till you hear what Dad tried to do to me. In this particular story. And so I share this story and I share this idea is because I want everyone to look at the Torah reading. Read what we're reading this morning. Pay attention to what's there. What are the lessons that we're meant to learn? Is it about devotion to God and commitment to whatever it is that God asks of us? And that can be a very legitimate understanding for it. Or is it that Judaism is asking us to sometimes fight back a little bit? When we struggle against something, when something is a problem, to say, this is a problem, and I need to stand up against that. I need to be able to legitimately be able to say, this is something that I believe in, and how do I make that work? Can both be part of what our story is and what it's about. And certainly something for all of us to be thinking about as we read our Torah reading this morning on page 103.